What up, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. On this channel, we talk about crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, online shopping. We talk about e-commerce, talk about Shopify. We cover it all, folks. And I think the real reason is that it's so important to understand if you are like in a dungeon, let's just say, you're in a dungeon and you're like, I don't know, I love to used to play Dungeons and Dragons, right? If you're trying to slay the dragon and rescue the princess, and you're looking around, you gotta go around this next bend. If you know what is around that next bend, it's so much easier for you to anticipate that, right? When you don't know what's around this next bend, it could be a monster, it could be a friend, it could be a foe, it could be a demon, an ally, you don't know, right? So when you know what's around the next bend, when you know what's to anticipate, it's so much easier for you to be successful in your endeavors. And that's what I want to talk about today, but something that you might not be aware of, and something that you can kind of combat a tiny bit, and just talk about and demystify why this happens on Kickstarter, and it's coming up right after this. All right, so what am I talking about? I'm talking about the cancellation of Kickstarter pledges, right? So the cancellation of pledges. It is so annoying. I know it's so annoying, man, but it happens, and we gotta understand it to put it into context, but also so that you are aware of it. Creating awareness again makes it so much easier to anticipate. When you can anticipate, you can plan for things, and you're not caught flat-footed. You're not caught off guard. It just makes the whole process a lot more pleasurable, and also a lot easier. And you can also then be more successful if you can anticipate things when you're going through with the process, right? So first of all, when does this happen? Why does this happen? What's an example of this happening? So I recently had on my podcast the guys who did what's called the secret whiteboard. So you might have seen this campaign promoted a little bit online, but it's basically a campaign where it's really aesthetic looking art, and you can kind of open this painting, what looks like a painting, and there's a whiteboard inside, right? Which is, you actually probably need one of these, right? And you can actually write in this whiteboard, you can take notes and ideas, and you can close it, and then it looks like a painting. So when your friends and your guests come over, they don't see that you're some crazy YouTuber who's just writing lots and lots of notes and teaching lots and lots of things the entire day, right? So it's kind of cool in that way, but it's also aesthetically pleasing. It kind of reminded me actually of the Rocketbook guys, who I had the pleasure of interviewing. Super cool campaign, definitely something to check out. But that being said, one of the things that they were talking about is that they didn't expect, or they didn't realize that a lot of the times a funding curve doesn't look like this. So a lot of times we think like you're launching here and it just kind of goes here and then the campaign is over, right? And we're like, huzzah, right? A lot of times we think that we're kind of starting here, kind of goes up, and it's just kind of like a linear trajectory when it comes to a Kickstarter campaign. Unfortunately, it just doesn't really work that way. Typically, there's different types of curves. So one of the curves might be something like you're getting funding at the beginning, and then you're kind of staggering out, and then funding at the end. Another could be more of like a logarithmic curve, right? Sometimes it is literally an upward trajectory when it comes to exponential growth. But more often than not, if we were like to create a magnifying glass and like zoom in, right, it would look more something like this, right? With some kind of an upward trend, ideally, if you're doing the right stuff. So all the time, things are happening. New backers are coming in. You're getting notifications on your phone, which is really exciting, right? I remember a lot of times when guests are like, dude, I was just like listening and like my phone just kept going off and going off. And it's like insane, just the amount of activity that's coming from this thing, right? So you will get lots and lots of notifications in that way, but also you're gonna have people that are canceling their pledges. And this is where these dips come from, where someone backs out, where they lower their pledge, okay? And that can create a lot of anxiety because you're like, wait, why did someone do that? Why are a couple of people doing that? What is happening, right? So this happens, and I think that episode, I don't think it's come out yet, but that episode about the secret whiteboard kind of also illustrates that point a little bit. So first of all, when does this happen? Why does this happen? Okay, there's a couple of reasons. One is just the fact that there could be an impulse purchase, impulse buy, okay? We're going to say one reason here that this happens, why people cancel pledges, is that they made an impulse buy. Other reason, well, and we'll go through each of these, are competitors, okay? And I have worked with projects that have experienced this, competitors. Another could be, PR, I guess we could say the way that you appear, or a change in image, or there's something different, right, when it comes to goodwill. We'll just say goodwill. I know that's like a corporate term, but just kind of what's coming to my mind right now. Goodwill, or how people are viewing you, would be another reason. And kind of last one is just, there's different things that are happening in people's life. So we'll just say life related, okay? And then we're gonna get into how to combat these. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about, the reasons that go into this. So first of all, let's first go into the reasons that go into this. We'll talk about the reasons or ways to combat this actually. And is this something you should be aware of, or when should you be worried, okay? And so this is something that, again, if you are not right now running a Kickstarter campaign, this might sound like foreign jargon to you, but at least you're getting aware of something that's happening. If you're in the middle of a campaign right now, you're probably like, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, right? This is causing me so much anxiety, okay? So first one is impulse buy. This happens, again, when you're really good at your marketing. When you're good at your marketing and you have a really good deal, or you have something that people just want to buy, a lot of the times they make what's called an impulse buy. What is an impulse buy? Impulse buy is when you're not thinking really all that much. And there's so many times in my life when I've made impulse buys. I actually would say I'm like the king of making impulse buys, right? Is that I see something I want and I just buy it, right? And I tend to sometimes like not think too much. And it's because a lot of the times in my own life, thinking too much has led me and held me back from doing things that I've always wanted to do, right? So there's a reason behind that. I'm not gonna make like rash or impulsive decisions when it comes to serious decisions in my life. But if it's something that I want, right, it's just like, okay, I want this thing, right? But sometimes we will regret those decisions. So when someone's done a really good job with what I call emotional selling or emotional marketing, they've just done an incredible job with their creative, their photos, their videos, their gifts, all that kind of stuff. It makes it look so appealing, appetizing if it's a food. Or you take photos and some really interesting looking background. It looks like this thing is just like state of the art, super cool, right? People will very quickly take action. And that's what I teach. I teach this in my master class, which I'll include a link down below. How do you create that kind of emotional effect and raise people's buying temperatures to where they're just taking action, right? Super exciting. So they might make an impulse buy, but later on, they might decide to think about it a little bit and they might doubt their decision. Okay, now there are a lot of reasons why they could doubt the decision. So it could just be, I didn't feel like spending that much money on this thing. I probably shouldn't do that, right? Or, don't know if my wife's gonna be happy when the credit card statement comes in, right? Or, I don't know, man, like this is a cool product, but I'm just starting to kind of doubt whether or not this creator can actually fulfill on this thing. So there could be information that comes in that causes them to kind of doubt their purchase, which I think falls into these two a little more, so I'll kind of leave it to that. Or it could just be personal in that, I really did love the marketing there, but I don't think I really need this thing. I think I want to spend it on other stuff. So every time that you're making a sale or do marketing, you're not just competing against other projects on Kickstarter, you're also competing against other things in their life, right? That demand attention and funds and resources. And if they no longer view you, or they're not in that same emotional high which you created early on, and they just aren't as excited about it anymore, they might divert those resources to those other things in their life. So with an impulse buy, this usually is prompted by some kind of a reminder, okay? And this is very, very subtle here. So some kind of a reminder. So this could be, for example, a Kickstarter update. We're just gonna say KU, Kickstarter update. It could be an email, it could be a post on social media. More often than not, I tend to see it be a Kickstarter update, all right? Now this is not for every category. Very important distinction. A lot of categories out there, for example, tabletop game category, gaming category in general, video games, things that are more like a gamification of the project, they tend to do really well when it comes to doing lots and lots of Kickstarter updates. However, other categories on Kickstarter, for example, the physical product technology category, design category, you want to stay a little bit away from doing too many updates. And that's because a lot of the times, if you're doing your marketing right, these are impulse buys. No, not everyone, but a good number of them are, right? So if you remind people frequently, all the time with updates, that they spent a ton of money on this thing, and it's not something they need, it's something that's cool. Like I think about like the Quip toothbrush, right? Quip toothbrush is like just like a luxurious, you're spending too much money on a toothbrush, man, but it does look freaking cool, right? You know that you're spending too much, and you know that you're spoiling yourself. But if you think about it too much, you might actually kind of doubt that decision, So Kickstarter updates tend to do that. So you won't want to do too many of them if you're in more of a technology design category. Be very strategic about the ones that you do. Other ones would be like email, social media posts, etc. I do tend to find that those aren't as highly correlated with someone canceling their impulse buy. So what happens is that they might cancel their pledge, they might decrease their pledge, and they might just kind of decide to back out. And that's when you'd see like a little bit of a dip And again, if you're seeing a bunch of people cancel at once, it's probably related to some kind of a communication that you did earlier on. Other one, competitors. So this is important. This is important. Listen to this, my friend. This is important, right? So when you are shopping on Kickstarter, or you're backing on Kickstarter, or you're browsing on Kickstarter, I want you to take a second. I want you to back just a couple of campaigns. You got money, man. Just support a couple of them. Could throw $1, $5, make these people's lives happy. Go and support a couple of them. By couple of them, I mean like 3 to 5, okay? Look at the buying experience, pay attention to what it feels like, pay attention to the pages that you're going through on the website, or if you're using the mobile app, right, and you have the mobile app, pay attention to the user flow as you're going and you're backing these projects. Because, a lot of the times, Kickstarter will recommend other projects, right, which is a double-edged sword. Because if you are launching at the same time as another similar product, and then a product happens to be better than yours, and you're in more of a technology gadget, or something that's more of a utility product, something that people are pre-ordering more so than buying into the story of the creator, then they might decide to switch their pledge. And they might decide to funnel from your project over to the other one, right? So it can be a little bit difficult. And the same thing goes with if you have other campaigns that are running on like Indiegogo and these other platforms, etc. It can actually be a scenario where you're dealing with competitors, right? So you want to be mindful, not so much of like just, lots of competition in general when it comes to Kickstarter platforms. Like, what are the projects? What are the types in your categories that are live? And are they helping you, or are they competing with you in some ways? And a lot of the times it can be a little bit of an issue. So you just want to be mindful of that. And that could be a reason why people cancel or decrease their pledge. Another is goodwill. Okay, so goodwill is so important. And the reason why it's important, what do I mean by goodwill? Right, goodwill is kind of like an accounting term, like more of a corporate financy term, a corporate boardroom. We're talking about the goodwill of the company, right? I think of goodwill really as just like your relationship with a person, and particularly like a backer as a creator. So your relationship, right? Do people like you? Or do they feel good about your project? Do they feel good about your product? Do they feel good about your company? The things that you are saying, do they believe it? If they don't believe it, or if some news comes out, or if someone finds that you're selling something somewhere else that's kind of sketchy, or there's some kind of thread that's going on, some kind of discussion, they might begin to question that decision because you're like, do I really trust this guy, right? Do I really think this company has good values? Do I really believe in what these people are saying, right? And then goodwill begins to be questioned, and when that happens, you don't want this to happen. You want to be as transparent as possible. I've seen this happen before, and it is scary. Because then all of a sudden you get this massive outflux of people who believe that other person or who question you. And then all of a sudden there's this big, like, should I stay? Should I go? Should I stay? Should I go? And you might see people pouring out of the campaign. And you might also see people defending you. You're going to have to deal with that, and it's annoying. So you want to be as transparent as possible, be honest and credible, right? When it comes to your project, and try to just be ahead of the curve. If news is coming out, address it. I've seen it happen before. Address it. Be honest, right? Try to, put yourself in a good light, obviously. Don't be impulsive with your comments and your replies because you can't take them back. You can't edit them at the time recording this on Kickstarter. Be mindful of that, okay? Last one is life-related. So life-related, you can't control, right? You can't always control things in marketing and in life and in sales. You can kind of control the trajectory of the ship, right? I think of this as like sailing, okay? You can't, actually, I love sailing when I was growing up. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I would love to go to Boston and to sail there. And I was privileged enough to be able to do a course there one summer. And it was great to just like go sailing and to enjoy that experience, right? And to read the cattails and see the wind is going. One of the things I learned from sailing though is that you can have the best rudder, right? You can understand the seas, you can understand how the boat works, you can know how to tie knots and that kind of stuff, but you can't control the wind, right? You can't control the wind. And there are things you can do to tack, from side to side and to try to get to a certain place, depending on how the wind is going, and you're going in a general direction, but you can't control everything about that experience, right? When it comes to sailing. So it's kind of a similar analogy, is that you can't control everything, and you can have certain direction, you can move towards a certain trend, it can be in an upward trajectory, but all the time, man, people are gonna have certain life events, or things are gonna happen, or they're not paid, or whatever happens, their financial situation changes, and they just have to cancel their pledge. And unfortunately that does happen, and that's kind of more out of your control. So I want to talk very quickly about what you can do in order to combat this, and just a couple of things I recommend, and we'll kind of cap the video there. So what do I recommend?
Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillment is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillment today. Link in the description.
The first thing is that you want to be proactive about your communication strategy. So you want to be proactive. And by that I mean trying to message backers or creators, and there are different ways that you can do that. The people who are backing your project. Reason is that if someone cancels their pledge, it's very difficult to hunt them down and to ask them why. Why did you cancel? What caused you to pull back? Just curious, just trying to understand your experience, right? The more data you can collect, the better. So if you are proactive from the beginning, then you already have that communication that's been open with that individual, right? So you can ask them very easily. If they cancel and you can't find them anymore, it's difficult. So be proactive. The other thing is to be honest. Be honest, but be thoughtful about it. So I'm not talking about just being honest and emotional. Be really thoughtful and honest when you're conducting your replies so you can manage your goodwill. And proactivity is going to help you understand impulse buys, deal with those questions. I've even had great examples of people who, we've reached out to and they were like, you know what, you're right. I do believe in this project. I want to back it again. And they back it again, right? So you can also reclaim some of these people by just being proactive. Be honest, be proactive. The other thing that I would say here is being mindful of the kinds of updates that you're doing. And unfortunately, that's just the case. So the more updates, like I talked about, sometimes are going to cause a impulse buy. Be mindful of the category that you're in, the type of project. If you're not familiar with your category and how that differs from other categories, book a coaching call with me and we will talk about it, because understanding your category is more important than understanding Kickstarter as a whole. It's not just one big community, it's a bunch of micro little communities. So you need to understand your micro community and how people back, what people expect, what works well, what doesn't, and they do vary. All the practices vary from category to category. So book a coaching call with me if you'd like more clarity on that. One of the other easy things that you can do when it comes to just being mindful of your competitors is to look at the upcoming projects that are being launched on Kickstarter, which is a new bit of functionality. I think it was in the last year or two, that this actually came into being, where you can actually see other projects that are being launched very soon on Kickstarter. So you can also look at upcoming projects and just identify, will we have a issue with competitors, or are we going to have some kind of issue where there's a very similar product that is going to be going live very soon? You will then at least know, maybe we should ride that wave out if you don't have the ability to compete and launch after, right? So it can also inform you there, something to also think about. So these are just a couple of easy ways that you can kind of deal with canceling pledges. The number one thing is just don't panic. Don't get too worried, because this is just part of the process. And this goes back to the interview, is that this is just part of the process of being an entrepreneur, of being a business owner, of being a creator, being an inventor, whatever word you like to kind of put on what it is that you're trying to do here. This is just part of it. And the more you can deal with those emotions, it's kind of like the tax, or it's kind of like understanding that will allow you to just move forward and not take it so seriously, right? So whatever your profession is, there's always just sometimes not so pleasant emotions that kind of come with that. And this is normal. This is normal behavior. So just be aware of it, be conscious of it, and put those emotions in context, and just talk to yourself and be like, it's going to be okay, right? And if you are worried, you can always talk with me, and we can kind of square away and we can diagnose if there really is an issue which is afoot. I would say the biggest issue is that if you do have an event that really threatens that kind of view of people of you, and you have an immediate issue, that tends to be something that needs to be addressed. That being said, if you're interested, I'm going to include a link down below for my coaching forum where you can learn a little bit more about that. It's an intensive coaching call with me. You should really book this when you're kind of serious and you know a little bit about what it is that you're trying to do, and like you're trying to move forward here, trying to gather information, trying to see, is this something that's possible, trying to assemble a team, etc. That's a great time to book a coaching call. In addition, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. I'm also going to include a link down below to my free course when it comes to how to run a Kickstarter campaign. Really great course, and it will just kind of get you up to speed with how to do do one of these things if you're in that early stage and this is your first time doing one of these projects. That being said, my name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time.